In its first season of Sun Belt competition, the Marshall Thundering Herd were really pretty good last season, and that momentum can absolutely continue here into 2023. Charles Huff's group is going to be looking for an even better year in 2023. However, there are some hurdles to overcome. There's a lot of names leaving that defense. You do get a lot of nice talent back while trying to somewhat break in a new quarterback there. You got to break in some new offensive weapons. This is going to be a really interesting season for the Marshall Thundering Herd. So, is this team ready to compete for a Sun Belt title in 2023, or is this team maybe even going to take a step back from where they were, maybe get a little bit of a reality shock in the Sun Belt Conference? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel, previewing and predicting all 133 FBS level college football teams. Guys, that means I'm doing your favorite team. So hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded, but there are more ways than that you can help me support my channel. You're doing one right now by watching the video, and you can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else you're willing and able to do to help me support my channel, because whatever you guys are able to do, again, whatever you guys are willing, able, fully appreciate all of it. Let's talk about Marshall here in 2023. I think this is going to be a pretty solid team in the Sun Belt Conference. Definitely a team that I could see getting up there competing for a Sun Belt title in 2023. Again, if a couple things fall their way. How do we do things around here? Well, we go through a roster overview and look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, as well as taking a look at the 2023 Thundering Herd football schedule. We'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. So let's talk about the Herd. Marshall here in 2023 out of the Sun Belt Conference. Quarterback room is going to be looking sort of different, but sort of the same, as Henry Colomby, I believe a former Texas Tech transfer, is out. 938 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions last season. However, Cam Fancher was that leading passer, did throw 100 more passes than Colomby last year. You figure he'll be that starter entering 2023. 1,558 yards, 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, but there is a big discrepancy there. While Colomby's overall completion total was almost 73.5%. Fancher's was only 55.5%, while almost being a yard under in average. So there definitely can be some competition in that quarterback room this year, because TJ McMahon is going to be coming in here to help compete for that starting quarterback job. Would not surprise me at all to see McMahon end up getting that job either. So whether it's Fancher, McMahon, I think you're still either way going to have a pretty solid quarterback. Again, if Fancher is going to be that guy, definitely some things he can improve on, as could McMahon. But this is going to be a pretty solid quarterback for Marshall, whomever it may be. Running back room, you do lose a really, really good player from last season, one of the best running backs in the entire nation. Kalen LeBourne had on 302 carries, had 1,513 yards and 16 rushing touchdowns. You're going to be missing him big time. However, Rasheen Ali, who had a breakout year in 2021, missed a lot of last season with injuries, some personal things, I believe, as well. He is going to be coming back, will be that number one option for Marshall this season. Did have some playing time last year, 273 yards and a touchdown on almost 6 yards per carry. And then you got a lot of depth in this running back room as well. Ethan Payne, A.J. Turner, and Maurice Jones all will be coming back to this team. And if Cam Fancher is that starter, well, his rushing ability is pretty solid. Did have 466 rushing yards on 107 tries last season. When you take a look at the wide receiver room, this is where you start to take some hits, right? And this is where maybe the offense suffers a little bit as you lose a lot of very good pieces. Corey Gammage was your leading receiver, very dynamic option, 774 yards and 6 touchdowns. He is going to be gone, as well as guys like E.J. Horton and Shadid Ahmed. All of them are going to be gone. Those latter two, more of so depth pieces, but Corey Gammage is the big one there. You do get your second and third leading receivers back from last year. Charles Montgomery and Talik Keaton are both coming back. Around 650 yards between them on 60 catches, and a lone touchdown, which went to Charles Montgomery. You also do get a transfer coming into this program. That is DeMarcus Harris, who should be able to give a nice boost to this wide receiver room as well. When you look at the tight end room, your leading tight end from last year in Devin Miller is going to be gone. However, Toby Payne will return. And then you also do get, again, a transfer coming in. Luke Soto is a transfer to help boost up this tight end room. And on the offensive line, Kedrick Sartor is going to be gone. However, this is a pretty good offensive line anyway, so centered around Logan Osborne. You also get Trent Holler, Ethan Driscoll, Dalton Tucker back, as well as a transfer in Lloyd Willis, who is going to be coming into this program over from Florida State. All right, defensively for the Marshall Thundering Herd, yes, there are a lot of names getting off of this board. However, you do return some pretty key defensive guys. Let's take a look at the defensive line first. Yeah, there are some key guys leaving this defensive line. Kobe Cumberlander had 6.5 sacks last year. That was second on the team. He is going to be gone off of this team, as well as Anthony Watts, Emmanuel Bush, and Damian Barber. All of them pretty solid options for this defensive line from last season, especially Cumberlander, the leader, really good player on that defensive line. However, your number one tackler on the defensive line, and Owen Porter, is coming back. He led the team in sacks with 9.5 sacks, was your fourth leading tackler, as well as Sam Burden and Tyke's Legs also going to be coming back to this team, as well as a lot of transfers to help boost up and give some depth to this defensive line. Landon Watson, Michael Green, and Chris Thomas, going to be a pretty good defensive line for the Thundering Herd here in 2023. In the linebacking room, same sort of story. You do lose some pretty solid players, including 2 top 3 tacklers. Abraham Beauplan and Charlie Gray are both going to be gone off of this team. Charlie Gray was third on the team, 2 interceptions, did have 2.5 sacks last year as well as Jocko Bobo, who will be leaving this team as well. However, your leading tackler, best player in the linebacking unit from last year, Eli Neal, comes back. 98 tackles, 3 sacks, couple passes defended for him. And then again, a lot of transfers come in. Keyshawn Brown comes over from App State. Just talked about him in my last video. And then Miles Bell, Steven Dix, and some other names enter this linebacking room. So again, still going to be really good linebacking room for Marshall. And in the defensive back room, yeah, again, you take some hits here. Stephon Gilmore, who was amazing overall for this team, 3 interceptions, 1 pick six, 10 passes defended. That was tied for the team lead. You're going to be missing him, as well as Isaiah Norman, Andre Sam, and EJ Jackson. But again, look at who comes back. Kerryon Martin, 42 tackles, 2 passes defended, and Micah Abraham led the team with 6 interceptions, 10 passes defended, and a lot of transfers. JJ Roberts, Miles Bell is on here twice, so I apologize. He can play linebacker and the defensive back, and then Josh Moten transfer in as well. Your head coach is Charles Huff, offensive coordinator Clint Trickett, and your defensive coordinator is Jason Seymour, who, not who, as we take a look at the Thundering Herd schedule for 2023. Any game at home will be underlined. Any game on the road is in italics or that slant to text. Any game you see in green is a game I think Marshall's going to win easily. Any game in yellow is a game, okay, they might struggle a little bit. Maybe it's 50-50, but still think the Thundering Herd will win, and red is a loss. Should start out with a nice win against the University of Albany, the Great Danes there in week 1. So that should be a pretty easy win for the Thundering Herd to get things going. And then in week 2, you face East Carolina. Now, I do have you guys winning this game. This is going to be a very interesting game, though, as East Carolina adjusts to life without a lot of their offensive stars. Holt Ahlers is gone there at quarterback. Running back, Keaton Mitchell, he's going to be gone. Some really good weapons out of the wide receiver room are gone as well. So East Carolina, maybe a little bit of a rebuild and retool year for them, especially early on. I think it's going to take some time to adjust to life without those guys, and some key contributors in the secondary there as well. So while East Carolina is still adjusting to life without those stars, I think Marshall comes on the road, going to be able to win that game there. And then a really early bye week for Marshall. You get it in week 3, but you get it before a pretty perfect date here with a home date against Virginia Tech. Now, I do have this as a loss. Again, what I do is I denote a team's final record. I go back through and take the losses that I need to take to be able to make everything work out. Virginia Tech is a team that I see with a much improved roster, still struggling here in 2023. Maybe just a lot of close losses. But I do see Virginia Tech being able to beat Marshall here. Maybe Marshall still adjusting to life with a new quarterback. Again, if it's Fancher, maybe not a whole lot more adjusting to do. If it happens to be McMahon, okay, there may be some things to work through there. But overall, pretty much just calling what I think to be an upset here. Again, Virginia Tech does have a much improved roster. But I do see Marshall, maybe Virginia Tech surprises them and they lose this one there at home. But you do get your first game in conference play the next week, and it's against a team that I think is going to put up some good fights, maybe win their fair share of games in Sun Belt Conference play, but I do not see the Old Dominion Monarchs beating the Marshall Thundering Herd. That's a team that lost a lot of talent to the transfer portal. When you take a look at your next game on the road against NC State, your second ACC opponent, I think that's a loss there as well. I think Dave Doeren's group is going to be a pretty good team out of the ACC this season. You're bringing in Brendan Armstrong at quarterback. He's got a lot of new weapons to work with that I think are going to work out for NC State. And even though that's a team that loses a lot defensively, if we know Dave Doeren defenses, they're going to play hard, they're going to play tough, and they're going to grind out a turnover, a loss of yards every single play. That's going to be a pretty solid NC State team, and I think Marshall drops their second game of the year to them. Now, this Georgia State game is very interesting. I really could see this Georgia State game bouncing back and forth. Could see them winning it, could see them losing it. I think Georgia State's going to be a very solid team this year. You got a lot of nice returning weapons offensively. Again, maybe some of your leaders, some of your stars are gone off of this team in a lot of positions, but you get a quarterback back, you get a lot of nice pieces back. Defensively, they loaded up on Power 5 transfers. It's going to be a very competitive team, but I think Marshall, again, with their defensive prowess, going to be able to edge out Georgia State on the road. And then you got some pretty tricky games coming up here. This is a really, really difficult, you can call it 7-game stretch here, all the way from NC State to South Alabama. There's some really difficult games, and inevitably, I think you're going to end up dropping some here. I got you dropping one at home to James Madison. Quick water break. Make sure all you stay hydrated out there. But when you take a look at James Madison, this team had no trouble adjusting to life in the FBS last season, and I think that continues this year. I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the Sun Belt Conference, and that is going to be a James Madison team that you are going to want to fear. They got a lot of returning pieces on defense and offense that, yeah, they're going to be needing a new quarterback there with Todd Centeio out. However, I believe that that's still going to be a very good team under Kurt Cignetti, a team you definitely got to watch out for. James Madison beats the Marshall Thundering Herd, and I think Coastal Carolina does the same thing. They got a lot of offensive prowess. They got one of the best offensive skill position rooms in the entire Sun Belt, possibly the best wide receiver room in the Sun Belt. Oh, and not to mention who I think is the best quarterback in the Sun Belt Conference, maybe a top 25 quarterback in the nation. It's Grayson McCall. He does come back. He did not transfer. Coastal Carolina's got some good pieces on defense, and even though they're under new management, still going to be one of the best teams in the Sun Belt Conference this year. I think Marshall trips up on the road in Conway against the Chanticleers. Then you have a game against App State here, and I think this one really could go either way. App State also needing to adjust to life with a new quarterback, a lot more so than Marshall. Again, Marshall had Fancher, who was their leading passer last season. Again, Columbia, I believe, was that starter last year coming out of day one, so it might be a little bit of a different feel with Fancher, but this is an App State team that loses a ton in the linebacking unit. They're having to replace some really solid talent offensively. Now, they do have a lot of good guys up there as well, but quarterback play may end up not necessarily being a strong point for App State this year. Now, again, I happen to have faith in the guys that are back there. They have a really good skill position room. Nate Noel, a lot of experienced wide receivers. But Marshall has had the better of App State in their series history, and I think that continues this year. I think defensive prowess slows down the Mountaineers and wins the Thundering Herd this game. I think the same is true for the game against Georgia Southern. Even with some of the losses in Marshall's secondary, Georgia Southern's going to have a really good pass attack last year, but I think that this Marshall defensive back group is ready for the challenge. I think they're going to be up to the task, and I think Clay Helton's Eagles are going to fall to the Marshall Thundering Herd. However, I do not think Marshall is well equipped enough to get through South Alabama. That's a team that returns a ton, a starting quarterback, a lot of good skill position players, a great defensive unit as well, and that's a team that absolutely can go win the Sun Belt Conference this year. I think on paper, on the surface, they're the best team in the Sun Belt Conference this year. Going on the road, that's just a tough cross-divisional draw. I see Marshall losing that game before rounding out the season with a win against Arkansas State, not a team that I think is going to be very good in the Sun Belt Conference this year. It leads me to a record of 7-5. Hey, again, it is a step back from last season, but 8-4 I could easily see as well as I could see 6-6. I think Marshall hovers anywhere between there, but I think this team, if the offense works out on its defensive prowess, can absolutely explode, or if the offense doesn't really work out, maybe some of these players regress, I could see things falling downhill. But I got the Thundering Herd around 7-5. Definitely will be a player through the Sun Belt Conference all season long. But that's where I got the Herd. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video.